I'm Jess Gartner, and I moved to Baltimore about 2 years ago. I am a middle school teacher in Baltimore City, and this year I have spent a lot of time reflecting on what it means to be an artist, specifically what it means to be an artist in Baltimore. And I've decided that it really needs to be a part of my life. I realized that first year I was here in Baltimore, I wasn't creating anything. I wasn't in theater, I wasn't working as a photographer, I wasn't painting, I wasn't making music, and I just felt like there was a really big hole in my life. And so part of my New Year's resolution this year was to bring art back into my life. A couple months ago, I took a class at the Creative Alliance on street art. This was something that I kept seeing a lot of in Baltimore. I was really fascinated by things like Gaia's work and the Baltimore Love Project and some other pretty predominant street art projects in Baltimore, and I wanted to learn more about it. And Gaia was one of our guest artists, and he came and he did a demonstration on wheat pasting, and we actually made a wheat pasting with him at the Creative Alliance, and I was just mesmerized by him and by his work and the whole process of wheat pasting. So when I went home, I thought about how I could apply that to my photography and how I could wheat paste using my photography. The first thing I do is kind of conceptualize what I'm gonna do with these wheat pastings. So the first series that I did was kind of a tribute to children that I worked with in South Africa. I had these really amazing pictures that were very special to me of kids that I had worked with when I lived in Cape Town, South Africa. And I wanted to be around these kids again. I wanted to celebrate their energy and just how much I love them. So the next series that I'm going to be doing is something called Windows to the World. I am an avid traveler. I love traveling, and it is one of my greatest passions. And I want to share the way that I see the world with my neighbors in Baltimore. When people see the world through my eyes, I want to show positive images that characterize that city to counteract some of the negative images that are all around us all the time. The first one that I've chosen to do is Berlin, and I think that Berlin and Baltimore have some pretty interesting parallels between them. I think there's a history of violence in both cities that really impacts how people live in present day and how they go about their daily lives. And there's this quote from John F. Kennedy's speech in 1963 where he says, "All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin." I think that the message behind it carries this idea of global citizenship, and that's an idea that's really important to me, this idea that we're citizens of the world. This building also has an incredible history because it was destroyed by a fire in 1933. It was originally constructed in the 1800s. And then there was no parliament, obviously, during the Nazi regime. And it wasn't until 1990, after the Cold War ended, that they decided to renovate the building. Okay, so I have a little bit of water in here, and this is just all-purpose adhesive wallpaper stuff. You can get it at the hardware store, so I'm just gonna pour a little in there.
Would you say the amount that you put in is generally the amount that you use?
I always make way too much of this stuff. I always have like jugs left over it, and it doesn't really save that well. If you think about when the Holocaust was and when World War II was in the context of human history, it basically happened a minute ago. And so there's still there's a very much of an awareness of that history, and you still see a lot of this rigid structure and the seriousness and the discipline in Berlin all over, and I think it's represented well in this architecture. What are the prerequisites? What makes you legitimate as an artist? What's the point of creating art? Who are you creating art for? Who's the audience? What is the audience? People are open to entrepreneurial artistic endeavors here in a way that I haven't seen in other cities in which I've lived in the past. And so that has been so motivating to me. And again, you know, talking about these limitations and labels, Baltimore just doesn't seem to care. If you want to start a theater company, they throw their love and support behind you. If you want to do a public art project, people are cheering you on. If you want to do art in the street, you know, people are all about it.